العوافي يا جماعة، وأهلا وسهلا فيكم بحلقة جديدة من تعا تمشى مع براين أو تمشى مع براين. The title is still a work in progress. So the concept behind this is that every day I go for a 20 to 30 minute walk. And what I would like to do is to have you guys accompany me on this walk while I talk about random topics. Now, I know this could be done in a setting where it would be isolated and we wouldn't have any background noise, but then that would kind of, or for me at least, the way I say it, that would kind of take away from the experience, because I genuinely want you guys to feel like you're on this walk with me. So we're gonna listen to the cars passing by, we're gonna hear the dogs that are barking, and we're just gonna experience the world the same way as if you were on this walk with me. And without further ado, let's introduce our subject for the day. So, our subject for today is none other than Greek mythology. هلا قبل ما بلش أنا أحكي عن الجريك mythology، حنحكي شوي عن mythology itself and why I find that topic very interesting. So the way I see it is that mythology, when you delve into it and when you read about it, you start to understand that mythology basically is the way the people of old used to explain the world around them. So they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know how to explain all of these natural phenomena that were happening around them. And the only way or the only solution that they had was to manifest these ancient powerful beings that were in charge of the world, basically. So for example, شافوا البحر، ما عرفوا كيف يفسروه، ما عرفوا كيف يفسروا الموج، ما عرفوا كيف يفسروا هالذات الأرضية اللي بتصير. So they manifested the god of the sea, Poseidon. ما عرفوا يفسروا, I don't know, thunderstorms. So for them it was the god Zeus who was throwing lightning at people because he was upset with them. So again, it was their way of depicting how the world around them runs, or understanding how it runs. Now, just like a brief little kind of introduction into what Greek mythology basically encompasses. Greek mythology started out with chaos, which is nothing. From that nothing, it birthed the Titans, like Gaia and Kronos. After them came the gods of Olympus. So the gods of Olympus were kind of the center point of Greek mythology. They started at the top with the ruler and the king on Mount Olympus, which was Zeus and his wife Hera. And there was Hades, the god of death and the underworld. There was Poseidon, like I said earlier, the god of the sea. There was Ares, the god of war. There was Hephaestus, the god of the forge. There was Demeter, the god of harvest. So they manifested a god for each aspect of human life that they couldn't explain how it works. And what's also interesting about this, والحلو كتير بهيدي الشغلة إنه هن ما شافوا الآلهة ك divine beings، كشي نازل من السماء و perfect. بالعكس هن الطريقة اللي شافوا فيها الجودز إنه هن أكتر مثل الهيومنز but with divine powers. So basically like a glorified Superman or a glorified, I don't know, Green Lantern. So the idea is that these gods, in their tales and in their stories, they weren't perfect. They showed and acted on flaws that are very human. One of those flaws, for example, in one of those stories is Zeus. So in the majority of Zeus's tales, he's depicted as someone that's very lustful. And he always used to come up with devious schemes to entrap various women and to make love to these women or find ways to trick them to sleep with them at the same time. including going to the extent of transforming himself into a swan, a fish, a bull, so many different scenarios. For example, also there's Hera, who who um, who also used to kind of have a constant state of jealousy or envy towards what was referred to as the bastards of Zeus. So the kids of Zeus that were not hers. And that's also a human sin. And so you can see that it kind of grounds the idea of شو هن هول الآلهة. لأنه هن الآلهة منهم شيء ما بيعرفوه الجريكس، بل هن عالم مثلهم، شافون إنه هن عالم مثلنا نحن، بس قاعدين على جبل فوق، وهن بيتحكموا، عندهم القوة ليقدروا يتحكموا بالعالم حوالينا. So it kind of grounds the idea even more that this was genuinely birthed because of the curiosity of man, the curiosity of human to understand the world around them. And when they hit this wall that they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the technology to be able to understand why the sea does this or why this does that, they depicted the gods. And it goes to the most basic things. For example, they couldn't explain how the sun rises and falls. And so what they did was they created Helios, who would ride on his chariot every day with the sun behind him, driving all the way through the sky. And at the end, when the sun is setting, is when he would actually go back to his home. They couldn't explain volcanoes. So what they thought of was that this was the kind of caused by Hephaestus, who was the god of the forge. So whenever he was forging a weapon or armor for these gods and these divine beings, the power that was needed and the fire that was needed to create these elements would ignite all of the volcanoes and would have lava spouting out of every mountain in ancient Greece. So again, just them finding a way to explain the world around them. And in a lot of these situations, these stories are actually quite beautiful. Not because they highlight human flaws or human errors and using those stories to kind of influence people to not commit those errors, but they were also used to, the best way to put this, they were also used as well to kind of demonstrate how the gods actually helped create the beauty in this world. Which leads me to one of the many stories found in Greek mythology. And this story is about a girl named Arachne. So Arachne was very good at weaving and sewing. And she used to weave the most beautiful tapestry. And people would come and see her work and they would be amazed and they'd say, "Oh, you've been blessed by the goddess Athena, who was the daughter of Zeus." But Arachne was prideful and she refused to acknowledge that she was blessed by the gods, but chose instead to besmirch them and say, "This is not their work, this is my work. And the gods have nothing or have done nothing to influence my work." Word got up to the gods and it reached Athena's ears. So she came down from Mount Olympus, went to Arachne's house, and decided to challenge her to a sewing competition. Now, again, it's beyond reason the way this happens or the way these stories are depicted. But reason is not the main aspect of these stories, but the lesson behind it or the eventuality of behind it. So Athena goes down to Arachne's house. She tells her, "Since you're so prideful of your talent, I want to challenge you to a sewing competition. And the one who sews The more beautiful tapestry wins. And so the competition started. They both started sewing away. Athena did an amazing portrait showing the gods of Olympus in all of their might. And Arachne, with her pride, decided to show the underside of the gods. So in her tapestry, she showed the flaws, like Zeus raping all of these different women in Greek mythology, like Hera plotting to kill all of the second sons of Zeus, like Pandora opening the box, and showing all of these flaws and depicting to the people that no matter how much these gods say that they're holy and they're divine and we need to worship them, they also commit atrocities towards us. This infuriated Athena, and she got so angry that she slapped Arachne. Having been slapped by Athena, Arachne was so upset and so distraught that she ran out of the house and she hung herself on a tree. But as one final act from the goddess Athena and a show of mercy, before she died, she transformed Arachne into a spider so that she would spend eternity weaving webs and doing the thing that she is most good at. So this is an example of how they were able to find a way to explain why spiders make these webs and how they make these webs. And not only that, the name Arachne was later used to refer to arachnids, which is a species, and also to arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders. And there you start to see that a simple name in Greek mythology and a story to follow it influenced the world till today. And that's also one of the aspects that's so nice about Greek mythology and mythology in general. Now, if you want to learn more about these stories and these depictions of the gods, I would recommend a series of books written by a man named Stephen Fry. Now, Stephen Fry is a comedian. He's a British comedian, actor, and also writer. And he wrote a series of books on Greek mythology. The first would be Mythos, which is kind of a summary of what Greek mythology is and the gods and the tales that involve them. The second book was Heroes, which talks about all the heroes of Greek mythology, be them gods, be them demigods, be them human, whatever it is. And then also there's Troy, which depicts the story of Troy. And finally there's Odyssey, which is the story of Odysseus' journey back home to Ithaca after the Trojan War and after Troy. So these books are not only very insightful, but they're written in a very, it's a very compelling way. And I guarantee that any one of you that chooses to pick up one of these books, if you like storytelling, you'll probably just binge all four of them straight away. لأنه كتير قوية الكتب وهو زلمة كتير قوي كمان يعني بالشيء اللي عم بيعمله. But that also kind of leads me to another point and kind of why I think I have this interest in Greek mythology itself. So one day I was in the office. I'd come in. Usually I always read on the train to work. So I had my book next to me on my desk and I was turning on my computer and one of my colleagues passes by. Now this colleague of mine, he's Greek. And he sees the book. The book that I was reading was Heroes. And he goes, "Oh, what's this?" And I go, they're a series of books written by this guy named Stephen Fry. They're about Greek mythology. And he's like, "Oh, great. I'd love to read these books." And so I gave him a list of all of the books. He bought them a day later. And after a month, he comes over, and I was sitting at my desk, and he comes over and he goes like, these books are very nice, the way they're written, but also what I like about them the most is that they talk about my people's history. And I go, yeah, they do. And they talk about my people's history as well. And at that instance, he gave me a look of confusion. And I go, and he goes, what do you mean? And I go, did you, like, which book did you get to right now? And he's like, I'm in the middle of Heroes. And I go, did you read the story of Europa? And he said, no, I haven't gotten to it yet. So I didn't divulge the story to him, but I waited for him to read it, because afterwards he came back and acknowledged what I said. Because the story of Europa is that Europa was a Phoenician princess, and she was the daughter of the king of Saida, Tyre. And she was beautiful beyond explanation. Princes and kings used to come and fawn in front of her, but she refused all of them. And who saw her beauty as well? But none other than Almighty Zeus. But he needed to find a way to get to her. And so the solution he came up with was, one day she was out with her friends in the fields. So he transformed himself into a white, beautiful bull. And Europa saw the bull and she was intrigued by its beauty. And so she got closer. And as soon as she jumped on top, he started running. And he ran all the way across the water and landed in what is now referred to as Europe, because it was named after Europa. So you could see that Greek mythology itself is not just about the Greeks, but it's all of the Greek Empire, which included ancient Phoenicia and the Levant area in general as well. And that's where you start to see why I like Greek mythology, or why I like delving into mythology, is because sometimes, sorry about that, guys. Sometimes you need to read these various histories to see the influence that our people had in building this ancient world. So our people didn't just influence the ancient world or the world, but they also influenced the world of today. And you would never find this out if you only stuck to reading books that were published in Lebanon, or books that only talk about Lebanese history or Lebanese culture. But when you start to read Greek mythology and you see this, you find this interesting point which connects you to an ancient civilization, which connects you to this phenomenon that's happened, and shows you the impact that our people had, no matter how small or how big, but still an impact in the shaping of the world of today. A continent by itself, named after the daughter of a Phoenician king. And it's always nice to see this. And I hope that one day the Ministry of Culture and Education in Lebanon turns on the switch that's in their head and decides to start teaching all of these kids and all of these people that are going to schools about genuinely how influential our ancestors were in the shaping of the world today, and how we're not just some backward countries that's found in the Middle East, but at one point in history we were at the epicenter of the evolution of the world. Even Baalbek, the temple of Baalbek, although it was a Phoenician temple, and it was built after the god Baal. It was later, after discovered by the Greeks, it was converted and turned into a temple for Zeus. So our history even spans way farther or way back from Greek mythology and the Greek Empire. And this is the point of my podcast today. It's not only to highlight Greek mythology and how beautiful it is, but it's also to show that the biggest enemy we have as Lebanese people is that we fail or we don't know our own capacity, and we don't know how influential we truly were and we truly are in the world. Because once you read these things and you understand how far back we go, you start to have not only pride in what you are and who you are, but a sense of obligation to do better, so that you can compare with all of these influential people of history that came from the same land that you come from and are probably your ancestors, maybe 5 steps down. So with that أنا بنهي معكم اليوم الحلقة الثانية تعال تمشى مع براين or تمشى مع براين. Like I said, the title is still a work in progress, but more or less it's just us talking about these random topics like we did today about Greek mythology. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll definitely be coming back to you guys soon with another Timsheye and another random topic to talk about. But for now, thank you, وشكرا وهيك.